We consider a problem setting where a robot must plan its actions in a partially observed environment and receives both sensory information from the environment and human-provided information from a human who knows things about the environment. The challenge here is to find a belief state representation, which represents a probability distribution over the space of possible environments, that can accurately incorporate both kinds of information, as well as efficiently answer queries about the environment. For example, consider a motivating setting where a robot must cook a meal in a kitchen and needs to find the ingredients. The human may have information about the relative locations of ingredients and have some confidence measure about these pieces of information. The robot should be expected to incorporate this information while performing queries. We formalize this problem setting as a partially observable Markov decision process, or POMDP, from the agent's perspective, where observations come from two sources, the environment and the human. We think of an observation as a set of fluents or constraints that each hold with some probability and relate state variables or properties of objects in the world. Some examples of state variables could include the size of object 2 or the location of object 6. In this work, we introduced the notion of a dynamically factored belief state representation, where the key idea is to join factors when their variables are correlated through observational information and separate them otherwise. Joining factors is done by Jeffrey's rule, where the main idea is to give total probability mass p to fluent satisfying joint values. For example, suppose that initially the robot maintains a distribution over the color of object 1 and another distribution over the color of object 2, each of which could be either red or blue. Now the robot receives observational information that the color of object 1 and the color of object 2 are the same. For 3 different values of p representing the confidence in this fluent holding true in the environment, the new posterior distribution is shown. Notice that the total probability mass given to joint values where the color of object 1 and the color of object 2 are the same is p. Of course, if we only ever join together factors like this, the belief state representation would quickly grow too large and intractable to work with. Instead, we also devise a mechanism by which we can split factors apart when their variables are not too correlated through information. The idea is to measure the Jensen-Shannon divergence of reconstructing the joint from the constituent marginals. On the left here, we have an example where the joint distribution is completely factorized into a product of 2 marginals without any loss of information, whereas on the right, some loss of information is incurred because the variables are not actually independent. In our experiments, we perform splits based on a threshold on the Jensen-Shannon divergence. The idea is that as the threshold increases, we're allowing more splits to occur, which means the accuracy of inference goes down, but also our belief state representation becomes more compact since we're not storing as many joint distributions. We experiment with robotic cooking domains in both a discrete 2D and a continuous 3D setting, involving both locations and ingredients in the world. We test against the baseline, which is a statically factored belief state representation denoting what the contents of each location are. We find that our approach, the dynamically factored belief, yields inference speeds that are an order of magnitude faster than the baseline approach, leading to much higher success rates on the task as measured against the 60-second timeout. We can also measure the effects of changing the noisiness of the observations and the error threshold by which we are allowed to marginalize on both the plan execution cost and the average factor size of our belief state representation. As expected, as observations get noisier, both plan execution costs and average factor sizes increase. As we allow more noisy splits to occur, incurring more loss of information, plan execution costs increase, but of course the average factor size in our belief state representation goes down.